right. Welcome everyone to this first ever AWS Community Nordics live stream meetup event. I'm going to start with a few slides of information, and then we'll hand it over to Marcia, who will be talking about the actual topic for today. So, as you found yourself here, maybe you are part of one of these Nordic communities, and if you stumbled here by accident, I welcome you to join one of these communities and following also the upcoming events during this time towards the summer. And if anyone finds these YouTube links outside of Nordics, everyone is welcome. But the timing of these events is so that it will be most suitable for Nordic audiences. So we have decided that the time will be on weekday nights at 5 p.m. Central European time and 6 p.m. Eastern European time. We will try to provide you with all kind of exclusive and special content moving forward. So we have been talking about keeping meetups, for example, like gaming platforms and such, or blockchain, which are not kind of your run-of-the-mill type of topics that would be available in each kind of normal meetup because of the restrictions of good speakers in those specific topics. So we try to take advantage of the situation and bring you interesting topics that would otherwise be kind of difficult to arrange. We expect and value feedback, so anything that you would like to tell us, you can reach us via email, via meetup.com, and via the Nordics user group Slack. We will try to figure out that how to promote more dialogue and interaction during these virtual meetups, but that is a topic for future. All right, so everyone should be aware of the AWS Community Nordics website. You should keep active on Slack. You can find instructions how to join Slack if you do not know how or are not yet a member. And we do also have a COVID statement about the current status, and that page keeps on updating if there are changes to when we are moving back to normal life and normal meetups. Other events, a few days ago, it was announced that the Summit, AWS Summit series is going to be replaced by a virtual summit, and it's going to be one for the whole of EMEA. So you can find registration link through there. So go and reserve your spot and join on the date. The next meetup, we will figure out a date from somewhere 2-3 weeks from today, and we will get back to you via the normal meetup groups with the exact dates and exact topic. If any of you in the community have a topic that you would like to talk about, also on this virtual platform, feel free to reach out and tell us. All right, and that's it for the community. So now it's time for me to hand over to Marcia to the actual topic of the day.
Hello, I hope you all can see me. Now I close Skype, so Rolf is not here anymore. So yes, I'm Marcia, and I hope everything is good with the connection. There was some hiccups before. So I will be talking a little bit about pipelines and serverless analytics pipelines. But before getting there, I would like to talk a little bit about the events. As Rolf mentioned, there's some events coming up, like the summit, that's a big one. But there is also some smaller ones that are coming up. The first one is what's new in serverless. I will leave you the links in the description of this video so you can register. What's new in serverless? That's Heitor Lessa, one of our serverless gurus, talking about the releases on serverless between 2019 and 2020. That's going to be a really interesting webinar. And then we have serverless development with DynamoDB going on the 11th of May. And that's Rick Colligan, our Dynamo master of the word, talking about Dynamo for serverless. The good thing of this that they are EMEA time zones. That's why I'm promoting them here. There's millions of webinars going on around in AWS in general. Some of them are targeted to US because of the time zone. These are really good time zones for people in Europe. And also the summit as well is going to be in European time. There is going to be some conference like Serverless Days virtual as well going on. That's not organized by AWS, but it's quite full of AWS heroes and influencers. And I hope more of these meetups to come. So stay tuned to the Twitter feed and the page of your local meetup. And I'm sure you will get also information from Slack. So let's move to the presentation. As I said, I will be talking about building a serverless analytics pipeline, and that's the main topic of today. If you don't know me, I'm a developer advocate for AWS. I joined the company like 7-8 months ago. It feels like always day one here, but it's good. I'm the developer advocate for the Nordics, so I'm pretty sure a lot of you know me around. And I'm also the host of a YouTube channel called Fubar, where I post videos. Now I've been posting 3 times a week, so I'm producing a lot of content there about serverless and cloud computing. And yesterday, for example, interviewed Chef Bar, so it's pretty cool, the content that I'm creating now in these times. So you can check the videos and everything there. There's always GitHub repos for everything I do. So let's move to the topic of today. And I will give a 5 seconds introduction on why analytics. I know in the Nordics people like me to go straight to the point, but I think it's always nice to start with why. And I think because we all have heard in our companies that we are data-driven, we make decisions based on data, our analytic pipeline is the most important thing that we have, even if you're retail or gaming, like analytics is the core of the business. And that's because data is so important. It's so hard to ask all the customers what they want, but it's so easy if we track on what they do and we analyze what they do, then we can get to what they really want. For example, when I'm making my YouTube videos, I look at my analytics very closely. I look at where YouTube analytics are really good for videos. I look at where people drop, what kind of content gets more views and what content gets more retention on the audience. And I notice, for example, that people don't like silence. Every time I breathe, people go. So what I do, I edit all my videos without me breathing. So it sounds like I'm very hype. That's the magic of doing edits. But that kind of things you can realize and you can increase the retention, for example, in my videos, that is what I produce. And for that, you can do for anything. I was working before AWS in a gaming company, and analytics was the core and everything was driven through data. And it's really cool to see. So in general, there is like 4 stages in the analytics maturity of a company. The first stage, and I hope nobody is in here and think this was very normal 5, 6, 10 years ago, and I hope now it's not, is when you have events coming in different forms, in different sources, in different ways into a centralized place. And then there is a lot of manual work to produce the reports and there is scripts, but the scripts don't work very well. They're slow. There is a lot of manual work and a lot of missing automation and a lot of like things that don't match perfectly. And that's the phase 1, when you have a mess. The phase 2, I think, is where everybody is in some way. I think phase 2 and phase 3 is where everybody is sitting right now in the current world of the cloud. That is, you have a very fast way to ingest your data. You have somewhere that you created some pipelines and your applications and your servers, and everybody's sending data in a simple way to centralized place. And then you have maybe some manual work, but mostly scripts. And the thing in these scripts that they might take many days to get you results. So it's not near real time, but at least you have some process and you can get your reports once a week or once a month with no problem. It's smooth. The phase 3 is, I think, the best phase. Well, phase 4 is cool, but I think phase 3 is a really manageable, perfect solution for most of enterprises. That is when they have near real-time analytics available. So that means that they have a process to ingest the data. It goes all processed automatically and flows through the pipeline in a seamless way, and you can see the data in your dashboards in no time. And when I mean real near time, I mean data that is crucial for your business to work. Sure, there is some data that you can have the reports at the end of the week or at the end of the month, and even some reports are not that relevant and they need some time to crunch the data and process it through. But for example, you want to know how many customers are in your retail store right now. You want to have this data available right now. You don't want to know at the end of the day that you have, I don't know, 400 customers. You want to know now that inside your store there is 40 customers. So that's the type of events that you want here. And the fourth phase is that when you can fit those near-time or real-time data into machine learning, and you can get amazing things. For example, you're a gaming company and you're making a game. So you're in phase 4, you have collected customers. I love games, as you see, they're mostly they're all game customers that I'm presenting, but I think games are excellent showcase of amount of analytics events. Supercell sent us 45 billion in-game events per day. Like EA Games, Glue, Fortnite. Fortnite has 125 million events per minute. Like, they're amazing numbers, they're huge. So you can understand how this pipeline can scale to, well, they will not be using the pipeline that I'm showing you, but they will be using a lot of components from the pipeline that I will show you. So you can see how big this can go, and this is so amazing. This is one of the reasons I love this too. So let's look at what is building an analytics pipeline. So this is the typical pipeline example. We have from one side an event, and events can be written in JSON, for example, and they describe something that just happened. And then there is an ingest process, and that means to get the event to the pipeline. Imagine that pipeline is in the cloud, and you're getting those events from your web apps, from your mobile apps, from other servers, from IoT devices, I don't know, whatever you are getting events from. Then those events need to be stored somewhere in your data lake. You store them, and then you need to do something. You process those events. And this is a cycle, because sometimes you store the events, then you process them, then you store what you process, and then you process them again. Sometimes one event can have 4 or 5 different end results. So it comes from here, and it gets processed by 4 parallel things that they end up in 4 different reports. That's up to the one that is creating this pipeline. And finally, we have the step that is consuming these events so they can get answers. It can be a dashboard, it can be a report, it can be an email, it can be a notification, it can be a machine learning input, an input for a machine learning model. So the AWS Analytics portfolio is huge, and it's divided, if you see, in the same type of layers that the pipeline has. We have the data movement, that is the ingestion, the data lake, that is the storage, the analytics layer, that is the processing, and finally, the data visualization, engagement, and machine learning, that is the consume. So in the data movement, we have all kinds of services that are there, like snowmobile. You can call a big truck to your house so we can get your analytics event. Maybe that's not very real time, so we are not going to talk about that. But these are the topics I'm going to cover today. I'm going to talk about Kinesis. That is a great service to ingest data. I will be talking about S3, the best data lake that you can get. I will be talking about Glue, that is a great processing tool for your data lake. I will be talking about Athena and Quicksight. If I talk about everything, we either don't get anywhere or we spend here the whole night. So let's start with the first step in our pipeline, that is data ingestion. So as I said, I will be talking about Kinesis here, and from the Kinesis flavor, we have 4. We have the data streams, the data firehose, the video streams, and the data analytics. I will not talk about the last two because they are not relevant for ingesting data. I will be talking about data streams and data firehose. Maybe if you have heard about this, you think they're very similar. They are, so I will focus on the differences. So Kinesis data streams help you to get and ingest data into your cloud or into your pipeline. And one of the biggest characteristics of Kinesis Firestreams is the ability to have a very flexible processing options. You can send it to Hadoops in your Elastic Machine MapReduce. You can send it to your own EC2 instances. You can process it with Lambda as the events arrive. And then with Kinesis Firehose, your processing capabilities are more limited. You can use Glue and you can use Lambda, and that's kind of it. And you can also store it in very limited places. You can put it in S3, Redshift, Elasticsearch, or Splunk. With data streams, you have a more variety of different places where you can put your data. So I think this table is a better way to explain these two services. When we talk about data streams, we talk about real-time, very low latency. It's just event come in, event comes out, and it gets processed. With Kinesis Firehose, there is some delay because how it works is that you define a buffer for it. So you need to wait for the buffer to get full, or you need to wait for some time to pass in order for the event to get processed. Data streams is not fully managed. You need to define the shards. And in order to define the shards, you need to know how much data you are consuming. So in that way, it's good, but it's not as simple as Firehose that you don't need to define anything. It's fully serverless, it's totally magically works, it scales, and you don't have to do anything. But Kinesis Data Stream has the benefit that has the replay capability. It will store the events as your configuration from 1 to 7 days, and then if you have any problem, you can always replay all the events through from that 7 days. With Firehose, you don't get that. But with Firehose, you can store the events that are arriving. So we are going to use for our demo Firehose, and I will show you how you can configure it for it. Then we move to the data storage, and I said I will be talking about S3. I will not say much about S3 because it's as the iCloud Guru service face-off did some time ago, S3 is the best service, and we cannot argue with that. We are pushing everything there. It has the amazing durability of, I don't know how many nines there are there, but a lot. It has global replication, so you have all your data safe around the world. It has great management tools. Everybody knows how to use it. It has the storage classes and the life cycles, and it's integrated with so many things that it doesn't need an introduction. It's like a star of the service. So that's where we are going to store our data. And then we can process those events as they come in many ways, but I thought that as we are going to use Firehose, we need to decide on how we want to process those events. In Firehose, you have two options. You can process your events with Lambda, or you can process your events with Glue. Well, it's a nor that it's both, or an and. So as the events come in, you can trigger a function that does things, or then you can use Glue to do some kind of processing as well, and transformation of the events. I will show you a little bit more about Glue in a second. So Lambda is great, but I will recommend it to use it in the case that you need to do something very Straffalarious that Glue doesn't support, because with Glue it's so much simple, there is no code, you don't need to worry about it, it just works. So if you need to do something very special that Glue doesn't support, go for Lambda, but if not, try to take advantage of Glue. So what is Glue? That's something you might be asking. And it has one of those great names that it's very descriptive. What is gluing together? So Glue is an ETL service. And now half of you are like, what the hell is an ETL service? So an ETL service is a service that allows you to extract data from different data sources and then transform it somehow and then store it again in a data lake. So you have, for example, events coming in, and they are all different, but they are more or less the same, for example, from games. But all the events are a little bit different, so you can extract them from the different sources, from S3, for example, where you're storing your events. Then you can do a data transformation, like clean up in the data catalog. You need to define a database and a table. And here in this table, we are not storing data. We are just storing metadata. So we are defining in the table all the fields of this table. And these are representation of the events that we are extracting from, for example, S3. These are the source table, for example. We are getting our different games with all different events, and we will create a table for each of the types of events. That sounds great, but it's very manual work. You will go and look at each of the events and create different rows and tables and put types and link it together, and that looks very painful. You can do it. But Glue has also the Glue crawlers. That is a great tool that allows you to crawl automatically all your data lake, and it builds your data catalog and it keeps it in sync. So you can discover the data and extract the schema definitions and build your tables. So this is the lazy way to do it, and I love this because there's many reasons why it's painful to build a metadata table, but one of the biggest reasons, at least for me, is because Firehose will store the data inside partitions. That means that it will create inside the folder in your S3 bucket, it will create a folder that says 2020 for the year, then one for the month, then one for the day, then one for the hour, and in there it will put all your events. And that's a little painful because if you build a table manually, you will need to all the time add these partitions and handle that. If you use a crawler, that crawler can run every 30 minutes, every 40 minutes, every hour or something like that, and keep those partitions in sync, and you don't need to do much. I will show you in the example how you do that. Then we have the transform part. So in here we will have the source that we just pick from these events. We have created the tables in the data catalog. And now we also need to define the destination, where we want this data to be extracted to. So we also need to build in the data catalog a table for the destination. So then in Glue, what you can do is you can start a new job and you can say, well, this is my destination, and this is my source, and this is my destination, and I want to transform the events in some way. I want to remove some fields, I want to do. And what will happen is that Glue will automatically create you a script in Python with all the code you need, and that script you can always modify, change it, and run it on demand or based on events. So if something happened, the job will run, or run it in a cron way, like every 5 minutes or something like that. So that's the way to transform the events. So you can then have your destination data in the table and load it again into some data lake. For example, these gaming events that we have in S3 that are coming from multiple events, that's our source. And then we want to transform it to one combined destination. And then for that, we perform a job that will kind of merge all these events into one clean output that can be used for later on processing. Now let's move to data processing. And I think Glue is kind of in the edge of processing and data storage. So I talk a little bit about processing then, and now I want to talk about Athena. Athena is another great service, and this one I think is really cool that you can query S3 files using SQL. Everybody knows SQL, so it's not something that you need to learn again. In general, people, it's something that they know. I think it's one of those languages that it's like so cool that you learn it in school and it still works today. It's been like 20 years or something. So it's the only language I keep from my university time. And it's great that you can query it, S3 using SQL. It's serverless, you don't need to do anything. And it supports different type of formats of files. So you can query JSON, you can query more structured files like Parquet or comma-separated values or CR. But you just define these tables with different schema. And then you can write queries like select from my source all the blah, 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 like typical SQL. And that's pretty nice. So if you use Glue and Athena, all the tables in your Glue data catalog will automatically appear in Athena, and that's pretty neat. So you can build pipelines like this. This is an example of a pipeline that is combining most of the services I already talked. Instead of using Kinesis for the ingestion, it's using the AWS IoT to get the events, then they are stored in S3. Then some magic with Glue happens. It might be processing or formatting the events or changing them from JSON to Parquet. That is way more efficient to query. and then maybe some queries happen, and the result from that queries are sent to SageMaker to do some kind of model analysis, and that then is displayed in Quicksight. And these all can happen pretty straightforward, except the machine learning part that you need to build a model, and that's not that straightforward. But the rest, it's quite simple to do, and I will show it right away. In a few slides, we are getting there. Now, we are talking about the last bit of the pipeline, that is the data visualization, and for that, I will be talking about Quicksight. There is a service that allows you to create dashboards for business intelligence. You can do all these typical things that people from business intelligence do to build nice dashboards. I don't know how to do it, so it's always a pain for me to go into Quicksight because I'm clueless on what you want to see. But if you know what you're doing, you can add filters, drill down, zooms on the data, all kind of things. This is nice because you can access it from mobile and from web, and they don't need to, you can share it inside reports and applications, and whenever you publish the dashboard, it will just be available wherever this integration happens, so it's a nice service in that way. Then, how it works, you connect Quicksight to a data source, and in this case, we will be using Athena as a data source, and then basically you will get all the different attributes that are in the Athena table that you use as a data source, and you can start building the dashboard. In this, it's a totally serverless service. You pay for what you use, and it doesn't matter how many users you have because it's hosted in AWS. That's quite a normal problem with a lot of the BI tools, that if you have too many users, the software becomes very hard to use. So now is the fun part, that is the demo. I will ask you to go and visit this URL, and then we can get started with the demo. I will, while you do that, I will go and make sure that everything is working on my side. So I will leave this up for 2 seconds until, yes. So I have my demo up, so I will, but first, I have a next slide that I want to show you. That is the architecture, is what we are going to build. So we are going to build this thing. And by now you are familiar with all the different parts of this architecture, maybe with the first part, that is the Amplify. That's what I'm using to build a client. I'm using the Amplify SDK framework to connect it to my cloud. And with that, I'm just using the analytics category in the Amplify framework to hook it with Firehose. And you just need basically a Firehose endpoint and a Cognito user pool. And so that's what I did in the Amplified side. And then I deployed it to CloudFront, so it should work quite fast. And then we have the pipeline, that is the Kinesis Firehose, that is ingesting the events. Then we have all the events stored in S3. And then as the events are coming in, Glue is processing them. And the processing that is happening is the events are coming in JSON, and we are switching them to Parquet. And finally, we have Athena, that Athena is not doing much because Glue, we will create the table there in Glue. And because Athena and Glue are so integrated, then we just have a table defined by default. And that Athena table is the one we are going to use in Quicksight. So I hope you all vote, because now I will make this screen disappear and I will go to my AWS console. But you can keep on pressing all the buttons you want while I'm running this thing. So I will switch this, and now you all should see my AWS console in here. So this is a Firehose. So if you go to service and you type Kinesis, this is what you will open. You will see how many data streams you have, how many Firehose, and how many data analytics. I have one Firehose. I have already everything configured, so we can see it at the end. I hope it works, demo effect. In here, my only Firehose is this voting up Firehose thingy, and that is as active. And basically, it allows me to directly put events into it. So if we open it, then you can see here that the source is basically just I'm putting events into Kinesis Firehose using the AWS SDK, in this case Amplify, that is using the AWS SDK, I imagine somehow. And then there is the option to transform the records using Lambda. I have that disabled, but here it's possible that we do some processing with Lambda if we want. Then we have the bit that says convert record to some format, and here is where I'm using the integration between Glue and Firehose. So when you will look at Glue, you will see I don't have a shop defined, because the integration between Firehose and Glue is so tight that you can just enable here the format conversion, and you say, okay, my input is JSON and I want it Parquet output. And every time events come in, they will get processed. You don't need to find shops or anything. And that's pretty nice. It's one less thing to do. So this is enabling the format conversion, the output and input formats. And then this is the name of my Glue database that I need to have defined. And the table. This is what we were talking about, the data catalog. So this is the Glue where the Parquet files are going into. So this is our transformation. So when we are doing the Glue ETL process, we don't need to worry that much. We don't need to worry about the extraction of data because that's taken care of by Firehose. The transformation is taken care, but this integration that will do the output-input thing. But then we need to worry about the data load that is creating the table there. But I will show you in a second. Then the other thing that we can do is to store the source events that we are getting in. So when we transform them, they will be stored in the destination folder inside this in some bucket. But then if we want to keep the original, we can have that as well enabled. I have this folder in this bucket called source. And then here is where the destination, the converted files will go in the destination. Then you can define some error folder in your bucket so you can get all the errors. And here is where it becomes near real time because you have to define some kind of buffer. So in this case, I define the minimum buffer that you can, but playing with the buffer is important because this will make more efficient your pipeline. If you have a too small buffer, then you can run into problems. So you need to read a little bit on what is the recommended buffer for the amount of data that you are getting. But this is 64 megabytes or 60 seconds. So when I have 64 megabytes of data, it will take them to process, or when 60 seconds pass, it will take them to process. I'm not compressing the files and I'm not encrypting them, but I could do this just with one click. And I have my CloudWatch error login, so I can see my errors. So there is a monitoring tab here, and I can see that I'm playing and sending some events before. Well, this might be you guys, or maybe it was me here when I was playing with this. No, I didn't send 95 records, so this is all you guys. Maybe you can see the ones that I sent before we started here one. Test. So you are sending all these records and you can see it all happening here. You can see the incoming records, you can see the ones that are being converted and how they are doing. It takes a little time from the moment that they arrive to the time that they are converted, but it happens within less than a minute. And you can see all the data there. There's quite a lot of information. And if you have any errors, you can check the logs here for S3. I don't have any errors right now, but when I was building this, I had a couple, and this is a great place to see. So the next step is where we store this data. So this is my data lake, my bucket voting app analytics data. And here you can see my two folders, the source where all my events are coming. And here you can see the partitions, 2020, 04. This is server time. So 23, and this is Ireland. So this is like the events that are coming from now. And then we have in the destinations the one that are transformed. I hope there is something. So yeah, so here you can see that there is some Parquet files as well that being transformed. And then we have the next level, that is the Glue. So this is how Glue looks. So if you do in services AWS Glue or something like that, it will pop this. And here you can see my table. As I said, Glue is extremely integrated with Firehose, so you don't need to define a source table. You just need to define the destination table. And if I open it, you can see here the metadata that has been recovered by the crawler that is inside the events. So here is all my events. So I have the partitions, that is 2020, the month, the day, and the hour, the ID, and these three are sent by the Amplify. The rest are just generated by Firehose. And here, if you want, you can also see the partitions, and there is many because there are some old data that I deleted. And also here you can see the crawlers. I have one crawler, and this crawler is basically running every hour. And it's basically going to my destination and making sure that it's catching everything. So if you can run it manually like this, and that runs, but you don't need to do it. It will just happen every hour. If you want to try this, I recommend you to try it, and I recommend you that when you finish playing with this, that you put your crawler in pause, because this is serverless, so every time the crawler is running, it will consume some money, and you don't want to pay for this if you are playing with this. So this is something, it's the only thing that you need basically to turn off when you're doing this demo and try it out. Just put this in pause. You can do it here, pause crawler, when it finishes running. So the next step is Athena, and here you can see this data source is the data catalog from Glue. I didn't create this. This appears automatically whenever my Glue database appears here. This is totally automatic. And here you can see I have the destination table with the same metadata that you can see in Glue. And I can run queries, select all from destination. I hope there is not that much. Well, there's few. So it should appear eventually. Oh, now it was some cache. So now you can see everybody has very different languages. And finally, we get to the Quicksight. And here we can see the final results of what you have been voting. I could publish this, and it will be a shareable link, that one that we just have here. So it's just linking that and that. And then you can start seeing the tables right away. And if you're here, you can also play with what you would like the fields to be shown. You can play with the different visualizations. I'm very bad at these visual things and business intelligence. I will not touch anything, but if you are more able than me, recommend it to try it out. So we can go back to the presentation. And I have videos of this just in case something fails, but nothing fails, so I'm happy. Up, up, up. So if you want to build this pipeline step by step, I have a series of videos on how to do it. And you can go to that link and check. There's like 5 videos. It's around 1.5 hours of content on how I build this pipeline step by step and why I did everything. So you can go and check it out. And I'm running a poll. If people would like to see the CloudFormation of that, leave it in the comment box. If I get a lot of votes, I will put the CloudFormation for this pipeline. But for now, I just did it from the console. I already checked Quicksight, so I can ignore that. And that's it. I think we can jump into some questions. If the chat, if there is any, I will switch my view to the chat. Let's see. If there is any, I don't know why my chat is not updating. Oh, wait a second. It's always a hassle to be the producer and the presenter at the same time, so bear with me. I will open the chat and see if there is any questions there. Let's see. I think Rose has been replying. Okay, no questions. Please share the demo link. So I hope that was not too late, but I can put at least this link. So there you can get all the information on how I build this, and more or less everything I presented here today, it's there as well. So I don't know. So how easy is, somebody's asking, how easy is to write custom transformers for ETL with Glue? It's quite easy. It comes a lot by default. When you are building the job, you will get the source and the destination tables, and then a Python script will come automatically will happen, and there you can edit it. So it's pretty straightforward. Somebody's asking in Slack, why does the data arrive on S3 under the key destination year, day, hour? Yes, that's super important for making the querying easier and to organize in some way the events. In this way, first S3, how it works, it's better when you have all your kind of keys organized and shuffled in a specific way. But then also when you are querying in Athena, they recommend you that you have partitions in place, so then they can use those partitions as a way of filtering the data and make your queries faster. So there is a blog post I can also share in the comments after I finish this about how 10 tips that you can improve your Athena performance for your queries, because they take some time. And one of those is to have these partitions in place, because that makes the Athena engine to just reduce the blast of the queries and not have to query through the whole folder. Oh, there is some questions in Slack. Yes, please put them here, because I cannot have open 27 different screens. Sorry about that. So somebody's asking how to deploy and test a production structure for data pipeline. So I recommend you, if you do any of this, that you use some kind of infrastructure as code. I show you in my demo how to do it manually. But as I said, I'm planning to make a video on how to do the infrastructure as code. And then in that way, you can have exactly the same environment in production and in staging or testing or whatever environments you want. And then you can test it thoroughly before going to production. So this is something that can be easily created as infrastructure as code. And you can put it in the deployment pipeline as you will put any, I don't know, CloudFormation stack, for example, or something like that. So somebody's saying that if to collect the live polling data, do you think we can use Amazon Managed Kafka service? I have not used the Managed Kafka yet, but I'm pretty sure you can use it. What I know is not that serverless, in the sense that you need to do more configurations that you have to do with Kinesis Firehose. So I wanted to do a solution that is zero code, and unless you do it as infrastructure as code. But in here, there is almost no assumptions on the amount of data that you're going to transfer. You don't need to know much of your where you're going to put this. So that's what I like this solution. But I'm pretty sure you can use Managed Kafka. You will need to know a little bit more maybe about Kafka to use that. I have not tried. Somebody's asking, can you expose these Quicksight dashboards to the world? Yes, you can embed them in applications, in emails, and in reports. And you can also create username and passwords for them so people can access them. You need to create users and all that stuff, so they can be open. They are not attached to an AWS account, so that's something you can do. Is there any more questions? I'm always happy to answer my questions in Twitter. I have all my messages open, so you can always ping me there. If you have any questions there as well, in the YouTube videos, I'm always trying to reply the comments as they come in. So if you watch the videos or you want to have more information of one of these particular topics, I have 5 videos, one on each topic, covering in detail on how I build it. So it's something you can go and ask. When will you use, somebody's asking, when will you use Kinesis data streams in applications for log processing? Well, I think for log processing, maybe Elasticsearch. If we are talking about processing the logs, it's better. But Kinesis data stream is a good way to ingest them, but I don't know, where are your logs? If they're inside the AWS cloud, maybe you don't need to ingest them. You have them already inside. I don't know. In general, for log processing, you can use Elasticsearch, and the logs are in S3, for example, and you put them inside Elasticsearch. So, if there is no more questions, I think we can wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this talk, and I hope there is a new one coming soon with more speakers and interesting topics as well. So thank you very much for staying until this late on the afternoon listening to me. Have a great day, and I see you around. Bye-bye.